Hey, so quick fundamentals corner before I do this little review. So the DeepSeek software, what does that mean for the semis in general? What does it mean for AI in general? So I saw an interview with the CEO of that company. I think it was him anyway. He was talking about how American companies are so focused on hardware and they are focused on the software side, and that there's a ton of low-hanging fruit to make improvements in the in performance on the software side, and that's where they were focused, and they were seeing all kinds of gains. Um, and like when I saw that interview, the thought process I had was, oh well, that's good. Like that's a good thing overall for AI and for all these American companies, because they're going to make these improvements, and it'll prove to the American companies that they don't need to invest quite so heavily in the semis and in hardware. And I didn't anticipate that they would open source it, which is actually kind of crazy, because now these American companies, if they don't, I'm sure that they already know what improvements they need to make, and are aware of these low-hanging fruit. But even if they're not, now they can go just look at the open source software and see what they need to do in comparison to what they did. They're not going to drop all their software and go use some open source thing that was made in China. Not that China has anything to do with it, but they're not going to go use some open source thing. They've invested in their software. They want to work on their own software. It would be crazy to throw it all out. And so they're going to double down, and they're going to just invest they won't need to spend more money. They're just going to probably divert some of their money to and some of their best engineers to solving those problems on their own side. Just thinking as an engineering manager, which I used to be at some of these companies. And so that's going to be their reaction, and they're going to see very, very quick improvements, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and I'm sure that their engineering teams are already aware of them, and they've been talking about them for a while, and now they're going to be forced to take action, because now finally the big wigs at the companies are going to be like, oh yeah, I guess we should invest in that. So overall, I think it's good for AI, right? And that's why this morning when I was buying stuff, I actually bought TEM on this dip, and it was a great trade. I'm sad it's not continuing. But anyway, I think that overall for AI, it's super positive. And as for semis, yes, they're going to take a hit, because they're not going to be as needed as others. And for example, I saw that VST and VRT were tanking big time. Well, their whole thing, from my understanding, is that they deal with liquid cooling and stuff like that of these processors. And if the processors are not going to be running as hot because the software has been improved, then that kind of makes what they do, their technology, kind of not necessary, at least right now. Now, I do think that AI is going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to push the boundaries. We're always going to need faster processors. That's not changing. And so I do think that over the long term, all of these semis are going to recover, all of them. And so really what we're talking about here is short-term plays. Now, if you look at SMH here, it's basically been trading in this range, and it's still trading in the range. And look at the low here. It just touched that low. Why did it stop here? Well, that's why, because of that low. And do I think it's the end for semis? Absolutely not. Even right now, NVIDIA is getting a really serious bounce, and I wish I wasn't making this video and I was trading it instead, but so be it. Okay, so I don't actually trade SMH. I just look at this and I think, if we got that break, what does that really mean? Well, if you look at the monthly chart, we're still in a serious monthly uptrend. Our monthly high or low is down here at 249, so 200-ish. And so as long as we hold that, we're like right now, look at this, we're in a tightening monthly range. We hit a high, almost like very slightly higher low. The lower high is going to ultimately be here, and then we're going to be scouting a tightening range with a monthly high or low somewhere above that one. If we push lower, then yes, then we're in a monthly downtrend, but that's still a long way to go from where we are right now, and so we'll see what happens. Either way, the way that I think of this is I always trade mean reversion, and I'm always looking at mean reversion and where could that present itself, right? So this is an indicator that I made. I call it, just hang on a second, get rid of this one, get rid of this so I can make it super clear what we're looking at. Um, so this indicator that I made, it basically, my whole theory is that for the most part, stocks trade around moving average, and typically on the daily time frame, you're looking at the 4-hour moving average, which serves as that sort of median for where price is going to oscillate. And I'm just going to make this a little smoother so it's not quite so jumpy. There it is. And what I do is I measure the hourly pivots above and below the moving average that price trades around, and then I mark those levels off. So the average high and low of where price trades is this red bar, and the average high and low of the low is this green area. So right now you can see we are insanely extended below. Like, I'm firing a rocket ship here because we're so far below the moving average. Now, yes, this is news-based. You don't just buy here because it's low. But there's going to be a mean reversion. The mean is coming down, but there will be a mean reversion. And so the question is, when is that going to happen? And the way I think about it with news like this is when the bearish news hits and there's shock and awe like we had overnight, that's a term from Shadow Trader he uses when there's an unexpected move and people are caught off sides. That's what this is, shock and awe. So there's a bunch of people who are caught offside and they're trying to figure out how they're going to either get out of the longs they were in or figure out what shorts they want to be in or where they want to rebuy. Like, it's just a lot of people caught flat-footed, right? And so when that happens, I always think that you need to give it a day, because the sentiment today is emotional, and throughout the day there's all kinds of investors finding out what happened, and they're reacting to that throughout this day. And so that's why you'll see on bear days like this, it can just keep going down, 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 down. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but it can just keep going down, down, down. And my hope is that it will, because typically what happens is you get that move down throughout the day, and then you get, even into the after hours, you get a move down, and hopefully even pre-market it stays down. Because what happens is overnight, all those people go to sleep, and then they wake up, they're thinking about it as they're going to sleep, and then they wake up in the morning refreshed, new day, and all that sentiment changes. Now we have a new day, new sentiment, and people start to think, oh my God, what an opportunity. Like, is NVIDIA going out of business? Hell no. People, like, the computing world is the future. And so we're going to need faster processors. We're going to need all the things that we thought we would need 2 days ago or like last week. It just means that short term, there's been a realization that we can make other improvements that make it not quite as necessary right now. But this is a buying opportunity, even if it's just on a mean reversion trade short term, or even longer term if people want to start buying in. Because, smart investors know you should buy into weakness. And so I would look at a gap down as a huge opportunity as that sentiment resets and people are willing to jump in and make the bullish trade. Now, which stock would I play? Well, let's just go back here and look at the SMH. So this is, I don't typically trade SMH. Look at the choppiness of this chart. It's just, to me, it's not my cup of tea. Another one to look at is AVGO, but AVGO is in this weird spot where it just had, in December, it had this huge up month. And so any move that it makes here down until it breaks the low of December is just an inside bar. And so it's just a little harder to see on the monthly time frame what would your trade be. And if you go to the weekly, look at this mess. Like, you just kind of don't know what to do here. You're in a weekly downtrend. That's all you know. And so because of the size of this move, you're probably well over 4 hour oversold now, which means that you can't really get into a weekly higher low trade. Let me just look at this. Add the 4 hour on there and just have a peek. Where's price for the 4 hour oversold? We're probably way below it. Yeah, we're way below it now. So typically it's 4 hour oversold marks the weekly higher low, or weekly higher low or lower low, whatever. You're looking for 4 hour oversold to get a weekly low. And so it could be happening, but I don't know, we may have missed that bottom. My point is I find this harder to understand and harder to trade because even on the monthly time frame, it's hard to see. Let's look at NVIDIA. Which is frankly my favorite stock to trade. And this is a very clear trend here, right? We've got low, high, higher low, higher high. We actually got a little bit of a peak above that high, which is why this says trend up, scouting higher high, because it broke that prior high. But visually, I can see this is, once this month closes, this is going to reset, push over here, and then it'll say we're scouting a higher low. Where does that higher low need to appear? Somewhere above here, right? This monthly higher low here. So let's pull the fibs on this move from there to there. We are at the 50% retrace right now. Bulls want it to stay in here. I personally, I don't really care. I think that if we move down and gap down tomorrow, that'd be pretty sweet. But either way, like, we're scouting a monthly higher low. Up here would be super bullish. You know, it's hard to look at the chart today and say how bullish it is. But if we did bounce from here, if this low that was just set today is the low, that's, in my opinion, very bullish. And so I think, especially given the news, so I think holding this monthly EMA 12, everybody has their EMAs that they trade. This is just one that I trade, is the EMA 12. I think that would be awesome. It held it before here, held it there. It hasn't really been breached since back here in January of 2023. And so holding that would be pretty dope. We're also in a bunch of volume here. So that's what I'm thinking about for that. I think it makes a lot of sense on the monthly. On the weekly, it looks kind of like a mess. And here on the daily, I look at this as a huge opportunity. Now let's jump out of this and look down into the 30-minute chart over here. And I can see, yeah, we're in a serious bounce already on the 30-minute chart. We broke the 30-minute stair step down. We're pushing up. You want to see how it reacts to this whole balance area here, right? So let me put on intraday, my session-to-session indicator. So yeah, look at all the volume that traded over here this morning. So this is much more of a bounce than I was actually hoping for, but let's see. I think you need to watch on the shorter term time frame to see, is this going to actually continue and just push back up? Like, did we actually set a low that's going to hold here? We never got daily oversold. The meter, I think, got down to 34 as I was watching. But if you go down to the 2, let's just have a peek. Yeah, this is a real bounce. Also notice that the RVOL is staying high. It's 4.25 today. Look at all these serious volume candles. Like, people are buying this dip. And this dip got bought. This was the highest volume push down on this bar right here. Pushed down a little lower there. Anyway, I digress. It's also heading back up towards VWAP. We got to see how it handles this here. This is a serious bounce. I was hoping to see a wedge form that would go lower, but I'm not really seeing that here at all. This just looks like a strong rally off these lows. So I don't know. I guess I got to wait and see. If this isn't the solid downtrend I was hoping for, like on the 5-minute, yeah, it's even above the 5-minute EMA 12, which held here, held there, and I was pushing through, right? So this is a serious bounce. If you look at the 15, yeah, the 15-minute, you still got to watch it. It could be setting a 15-minute lower high. But just based on the strength of the trend on the 2-minute and the 5-minute, I think this could go all the way up to VWAP at least. So anyway, tomorrow, again, I'd love to see it gap down. I don't know now if we're going to get it based on this little bounce. There's a lot of day left, right? It's only lunchtime in New York. Everybody's gone to lunch, and we'll see what they do when they come back at 1 o'clock New York time, 10 o'clock a.m. my time. But yeah, I would want to see a gap down. If we did get a gap down, then I'm buying that. But if we don't get a gap down, I need to just look at the price and see how it trades overnight and decide if I want to get involved here. Because what I'm really hoping for a gap down is I just want that like elastic to be pulled back as far as it can possibly be pulled for the stretch, so that the shot back up is fast and hard. And right now with this bounce, that diminishes the impact of a potential gap down bounce. Okay, I'm going to stop it there.